Crystal Waters, It Began in Europe. Book 1 in the Crystal Waters series by Diana Rozevskis. Chapter 3, Fowesby Hall. The journey up the motorway from Hertfordshire to Middlesbrough was a long one. 240 miles and plenty of loo stops later, they finally arrived at Gran's estate. While driving down the long driveway bordered by trees, they came across a lovely orchard. It all brought back many memories for Mum. She pulled into a clearing and looked over to the large house where she had grown up. Fowesby Hall, nestled in a secluded valley, has remained unchanged for generations, surrounded by sloping hills which embrace it tenderly. The gravel crunched under the car's tyres as Mum drove on up the driveway. On the right was a large vegetable garden with various crops. On the other side of the greenhouse were flower beds and a small herb garden. Mum remembered when she lived there. Fresh flowers were cut daily for the house. It now looked tired and neglected. The driveway forked off both left and right. The fork on the right swept past a small vineyard and around to the back of the house to a gravelled courtyard. On the other side of this courtyard was Olga and Herman's little cottage. A cobbled pathway led to stables, and besides this, a glass pool house and a small lily pond. Mum decided to take the left-hand fork that led them to the front of the house. The house overlooked lawns that rolled down to a small summer house and a paved patio area. In the centre was a water fountain that featured 2 mermaids coiled around a central column. Beyond this was a large wood, and running through the centre was the river where the girls liked to fish. Olga greeted them as Mum parked between 2 stone griffins. She hugged them all, one by one, before ushering them inside. Emma noticed a plaque above the door that read, "Waterways across the globe are essential to life on Earth. They provide nourishment, prosperity, and energy, both physically and spiritually." Olga linked Mum's arm and guided her into the house, through the heavy oak doors. "Where's Olga from again?" said Emma as the girls hung back. "She's from Latvia, one of the Baltic states near Poland, Belarus and Russia," Grace went on. "Then, on the opposite side of Estonia is Finland, and across the Baltic Sea lies Sweden." Emma let her natter on as they followed the women. Olga led them to the kitchen where Sheila and Robert were sitting at a large wooden table. Sheila hugged them all heartily, whereas Robert merely nodded to them. Emma gave Robert a quick once-over when he wasn't looking. Although he had become quite handsome, there was still a hint of arrogance in his eyes. No change there then, she thought. She wished he would stop staring at her. Memories of the cutting remarks he'd made in the past came flooding back. Yes, keep quiet, Robert. Better to remain silent and be thought of as a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. She smiled to herself. "I think I'll go up now," said Mum. She looked nervous. Sheila gave the girls a side nod to come and sit at the table. "I've got some lunch ready. You must be famished." Before they knew it, Sheila was serving lunch for them all. She was a wonderful cook. She had prepared a large shepherd's pie, hot buttered bread rolls, and homemade lemonade. When Emma thought she was full, out of the fridge, Sheila whipped out an enormous chocolate gâteau. Perhaps she could squeeze in a little slice after all. Mum came downstairs after they had finished. She looked worried and quite withdrawn, but she seemed to put on a brave face when she sat down. "Gran has asked for some of your delicious homemade soup, Sheila. Could you bring it up for her, please?" "I'll take the girls to see her now," said Mum. She sounded like she was on the verge of tears. "Of course I will, my dear," said Sheila. "I have a big bowl of it in the fridge. I'll warm some up for her. You run along now. I'm sure the girls are dying to see her as she is them." Mum led Emma and Grace past the dining room and up the sweeping circular staircase. The banister, up the stairs, was carved with mythical creatures. She remembered them well. These beasts also adorned the furniture and dark wood-panelled walls throughout the house. Ancestral portraits in their heavy gilded frames adorned the walls. They couldn't help but notice that the eyes in the paintings appeared to be following them. Emma and Grace made their way to the second floor. They found Gran's bedroom easily, but it seemed smaller than before. Sunlight flooded the room through large windows adorned with floral curtains. Persian rugs were dotted here and there on the parquet floors. The girls walked through an arched doorway. Emma noticed a large four-poster bed with a carved peacock on the headboard. Under this, propped up by big feather pillows, was a frail old woman. The girls didn't recognize their Gran at first. She smiled and held her long, skinny arms to them, beckoning them to come over. The girls went to her and kissed her gently in turn on her cheek. Her face was so gaunt it looked like her teeth were too big for her face. "I can't tell you how much this means to me that you are finally here," she croaked. "I have missed you all so much." Gran looked close to tears now. "I'm so sorry about your father. I didn't mean for him to get hurt." But before she could finish, Emma interrupted her. "We've come to see you, Gran, because we love you. Please, don't talk about the past. We want you to get better," Emma sobbed. She sat on the bed and flung her arms around the frail old lady. Grace also moved forward and embraced them both. Tears streamed down her rosy cheeks. Mum patted Grace's back gently. She seemed to realize how much they had all lost. They sat huddled together until they heard a creak at the door, and Sheila came in with the soup. Emma and Grace watched as Mum fed Gran her lunch. It was quite a pitiful sight. Gran had been such a strong woman when the girls were younger, Emma thought. Now she was so weak and decrepit, she couldn't even hold a spoon to feed herself. Olga, Sheila and Herman must have been giving her round-the-clock care. She looked at Mum's face, who looked ashamed. "We should stay until Gran's better," said Mum. Emma and Grace both agreed. Mum hugged both the girls and held them at arm's length. "Why don't you two go off to play or explore? I'm okay here with Gran," she said to them with a warm smile and pride in her eyes. The girls had decided earlier in the car that the first thing they wanted to do was to see Gran. The second was to go to the river where they used to play and fish, and so this was where they headed now. They descended the main staircase and out through the front door. They sprinted across the lawn past the summer house before heading towards the woods. Soon they could hear rushing water and knew they were getting close. A small waterfall cascaded down a hill into the river and flowed under a little arched stone bridge. Not far from here were the familiar stepping stones. The two girls sat down like they had done many times before, with their legs crossed. They gazed at their reflections in the calm, clear river. They had both changed since they had last looked into these waters, older. With her curly blonde hair, flawless olive skin, and bright blue eyes, Grace took after her father. Emma looked like her mum with long, dark, smooth hair, a pale complexion, and large blue eyes. Emma glanced at her little sister sitting beside her. "Your hearing is getting better, isn't it?" she asked. "Yes, but I didn't want to say anything in case I jinxed it." "I thought so. I noticed it a couple of weeks ago when the phone rang once." Emma squeezed her little sister's hand. "I'm so glad. Can you remember when it started?" "It's weird. Shortly after Mum said we were coming to see Gran." Grace smiled. "It's as if she'd flicked on a switch, and I could hear better. But the strangest thing is that ever since we arrived here, it's almost returned completely. It's like this place is good for me. Well, all of us, and makes us complete somehow." "I don't think you're being silly. I've felt it too. I feel so at peace here. It's like I've come home in a way," sighed Emma. After contemplating things for a while, the girls decided to go and explore a bit more. They headed back through the woods, up the sloping lawn, and around to the back of the house. They couldn't believe what they saw when they turned the corner past the pond. The glass pool house was a disgrace. Some of the window panes were broken and all were filthy. The timber had peeling paint and ivy grew high, attaching itself to the sides, guttering and roof. The girls creaked open the door. Inside was as bad. The pool was completely drained and most of the tiles had cracked. A dark film of scum coated them and a smell of mould hung in the air. Broken sun lounges, tables and chairs surrounded the empty pool, all covered in thick dirt. "I can't believe we used to go swimming here. I don't suppose Herman has time anymore to keep it up." "Up, up," said Emma, her voice echoing around the room. "Eku, ooh, ooh," shouted Grace. They both laughed, which also echoed, making them giggle even harder. Suddenly they heard a noise behind them. A dark figure loomed outside the dusty glass, and whoever it was moved towards the door. As the door opened, Emma and Grace shifted closer to each other. In he came, dishevelled and extremely dirty. The girls recognised him at once. "Herman!" they both shouted together. Hello, you two. I thought I'd heard a noise like..." "When did you get here?" He chuckled as the girls, despite the dirt, gave him a big hug. "We got here a couple of hours ago," said Grace. "Have you seen your gran then?" "Yes, we saw her after lunch. She looks so ill, doesn't she?" said Emma sadly. "Aye, she does very poorly, but she'll feel much better with you here. Anyway, I wanted to introduce you to a new member of our family," said Herman as he stepped from the doorway. Just a minute," he said, bemused at his friend's absence. Herman went outside, put his fingers in his mouth, and blew an ear-splitting whistle. There was silence for a few seconds, and then Emma and Grace heard great paws thudding over the grass. The creature came bounding through the open doorway and straight up to the girls. He was so huge he came up to Emma's shoulder. His long, lizard-like tongue flicked out and licked Emma's face, covering her with slimy spit. It ran down her face and dripped off the end of her chin. "Ew!" she cried. "Seba, stop that!" Herman shouted. Seba obeyed, hung his head, and sat down at Herman's feet. "Sorry, love. Here, take this," he said as he handed Emma a grey-looking hanky from his pocket. "He means no harm. He's just friendly and all." Emma looked at the hanky. She knew it was either leaving Seba's spit over her face or chancing it with this dirty hanky. It looked like it had been rolling about in the mud. She chose the hanky and gave her face a quick rub. She frowned, for all she could now smell was a pungent stench of manure. "Herman," asked Grace, "what is that exactly?" "That's Seba, me dog." He looked at Grace now with a puzzled expression. "Seba is a dog?" asked Emma, also confused. Seba had an unusual appearance, with a small head that seemed mismatched with his large body. His long neck seemed to bend in all directions, but not only that, it was covered in shiny scales. The fur on his body looked rough. Emma seemed to remember her mum scouring out pans with a similar textured object. His long tail, now curled round by his side, looked like it had tiny feathers stuck to it. Besides all this, Seba was a beautiful lilac colour. Emma and Grace stared at him with their mouths open. "Well, I know he's a bit strange, but he's dead friendly and got a good-natured he is," said Herman, trying to convince the girls. They did not need much convincing. They could see it in Seba's eyes. They went over to stroke him. He wagged his feathery tail and lolled out his long purple tongue. After saying goodbye to Herman and Seba, the girls explored again. "Where are we going now?" asked Grace as they headed towards the house. "I want to check something out." As they arrived at the front door, the girls took a left turn down a corridor after passing a small library. Grace peered in, wide-eyed. She loved her books. "Not now, Grace. We'll come back later, I promise," said Emma as she caught her sister's arm and dragged her away. They passed by the games room and through a small doorway at the end. In this small room was one thing only, a spiral metal staircase that went down to the cellar. down they went to the depths of the house. They investigated the cellar at the bottom of the stairs. It was dark. Emma paused for a moment, and then turned to Grace. She playfully nudged Grace forward. "I should mention that I prefer to be a leader, but in dark places, I'll let you go first." Even in the darkness, Emma knew Grace would be scowling. "I'm teasing," she giggled and flicked on the light switch, which illuminated all the chambers in the cellar. They walked through to the next room, and there it stood on the far side of the room, what Emma had been looking for. The source of her nightmares, a grand oak door, ominous yet still magnificent. Around the edges of the door was a mass of entwined foliage carved deep into the wood. On closer inspection, little animals and birds could be seen hiding among the leaves. The door resembled etched water, with a small lollipop shape indented in the center. "Can we go? This cellar gives me the creeps," shivered Grace. "Wait a minute," Emma held up her hand. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "Shh, listen," said Emma, as she pressed her ear against the door. Grace, who could hear it too now, did the same. They both listened. They could hear someone crying. It sounded like a young girl. Face to face with an ear to the door, Emma and Grace looked terrified now. The haunting sobbing stopped. It seemed like whoever it was on the other side of the door was now listening to them. A loud thud erupted from the other side of the door. Both girls fell on their backs to the floor. Petrified, they clung to each other with eyes open wide, not daring to move. Another mighty thump from the door made Grace start to scream. Hands grabbed Emma around the shoulders and pulled her to her feet. She spun around, her fists now up and shaking. It was Robert. "Come on, come with me," he whispered, picking Grace up from the floor too. He then grabbed Emma's hand and headed towards the cellar steps. Emma caught Grace's hand and they all scurried up the metal staircase. "What on earth was that?" shouted Emma as they burst through the library door. "I think you should both sit down," said Robert. For the first time, Emma saw kindness in his eyes. "I have a lot to tell you," he smiled.